30 years ago, the first European Champions Cup season took place as the Heineken Cup, and kicked off one of the greatest club tournaments in the world. Let's take a look back at the 12 teams who started it all and find out where they are today. Pontypridd, Welsh Premiership. Pontypridd are one of the oldest clubs in Wales, being founded in 1876. They have won the Welsh Premiership 5 times and also finished runners-up 5 times too. They played in the first Heineken Cup alongside fellow Welsh sides Swansea and Cardiff, and were the only representatives from Great Britain, as both Scotland and England didn't take part. This was in the early days of professionalism, and Wales attempted to create a domestic professional structure with their club sides. This, however, proved to be unviable, and in 2003 opted to go for a regional format, with all the Welsh clubs returning to amateur status, including the 3 Welsh sides that played in the first Heineken Cup, and replaced the 9 Welsh clubs in the Celtic League with 5 regions that would then drop to 4 the season after. The WRU recently announced their intention to reduce the regions further to 3 in a couple of seasons' time. Pontypridd finished second in the third of 4 pools, where only the top team proceeded to the semi-finals, so were eliminated from the competition at that stage. Pontypridd currently play in the Welsh Premiership and finished second last season. At the time of recording, it sits second in the league. Castres, top 14. Castres are an old successful name in France, being founded in 1906 and reaching 8 French Championship finals, the most recent being in 2022, where they lost to Montpellier. They have won it 5 times, winning their first title in 1949 and their latest in 2018. They finished bottom of Pool 4 in the first Heineken Cup with 1 win and were eliminated at the pool stage. They've never won the Heineken Cup, but have reached the Challenge Cup final twice, but again, never won it. At the time of recording, Castres sit 10th in the top 14. Swansea, Super Rugby Cymru. Swansea were founded in 1872 and have one of the fiercest derbies in rugby with rivals Neath. They were actually founded as an association football side, but switched to rugby only 2 years later in 1874, and they became a founding member of the WRU in 1881. Swansea were a very successful club in the early days of rugby, being unofficial Welsh champions for 4 seasons straight between 1898 and 1902, and have won the Welsh Premiership 4 times, most recently in 2001. In 1998, due to a disagreement with the WRU, Swansea refused to play in any WRU sanctioned tournaments and opted to play friendlies with English sides instead. They were joined by fellow 95-96 Heineken Cup side Cardiff in what became known as the Rebel season. An agreement was made between the WRU and the clubs for the next year, where they were given permission to seek entry into the English Premiership, but this never materialised. In 2024, Swansea were one of the teams selected for Super Rugby Cymru, a semi-professional competition to try and bridge the gap between amateur and professional level in Wales, but were knocked out by Bridgend in the quarter-final playoff. They finished top of Pool 4 in the first Heineken Cup, but were knocked out in the semi-final. At the time of recording, they sit 6th in Super Rugby Cymru. RCJ Farul Constanta, disbanded. RCJ Farul Constanta, which means Country Rugby Club Lighthouse of Constanta in Romanian, are a team you've probably never heard of, and also no longer exist. They were founded in 1955 in Constanta, Romania, and were recognised as one of the best Romanian teams outside of Bucharest, having won the Super League 6 times. They're the only Romanian team to ever play in the Champions Cup, and played against Toulouse in the very first match too. They were unfortunately disbanded in 2024 due to insolvency, but rugby has returned to Constanta with the founding of the new team CSM Constanta in 2021 and debuted in Romania's top flight in 2023. RCJ Farul Constanta finished bottom of Pool 1 in the first Heineken Cup and were eliminated at that stage. Cardiff RFC, Super Rugby Cymru. The Cardiff in the first Heineken Cup is not the Cardiff you're most likely thinking of, who currently sit 4th in the URC at the time of recording. This Cardiff is Cardiff RFC, currently playing in Super Rugby Cymru. The region was formed in 2003 from Cardiff RFC, so it's kind of technically the same club, but also not really. And as far as I'm aware, Cardiff Rugby don't make a claim to being runners-up in the 1996 Heineken Cup final. So I'm going to talk about the amateur team. Cardiff RFC were founded in 1876 and won the unofficial Western Male Welsh Championship 14 times before the formation of the Welsh Premiership, which they've won once in 1995. Cardiff finished runners-up in the first Heineken Cup and are the only Welsh team to ever make it to the final of European Rugby's premier competition and even hosted it at their home ground, Cardiff Arms Park. In 2003, when the WRU decided to go with a regional structure, Cardiff Rugby were splintered off from Cardiff RFC, who went to play in the Celtic League. At the time of recording, Cardiff sit 4th in Super Rugby Cymru. Benetton, United Rugby Championship. Benetton were founded in 1932 and won their first Italian Premiership in 1956. And they have since won it a further 14 times, winning it 11 times between 1989 and 2010. They joined the Celtic League the following season, when it became the Pro 12, where they played alongside clubs from Scotland, Wales and Ireland, and have reached the playoffs on 2 occasions. They also won the Rainbow Cup in 2021, which was a small warm-up tournament to the URC when the South African Super Rugby teams joined the league. They reached the knockout stage of the Champions Cup for the first time last season, but were knocked out in the round of 16 by Castres. They finished second in Pool 1 in the first Heineken Cup and were eliminated from the tournament at that stage. At the time of recording, they sit 10th in the URC. Ulster, United Rugby Championship. Ulster were founded in 1879 and are one of the 4 Irish provinces. They became the first Irish side to win the Heineken Cup by beating French side Colomiers 21-6 in the 1999 final. Let's just say things haven't exactly gone all their way since then. Ulster were a fairly successful province in Ireland before professionalism, winning the IRFU Interprovincial Championship 26 times between 1947 and 1994. In 2002, this tournament would end and be fully replaced by the Celtic League, now the United Rugby Championship. In 2006, Ulster would win this tournament for the first and only time, with it being their last piece of major silverware since. Since their 2006 championship victory, they have finished runner-up in the league twice and reached the final of the Heineken Cup again in 2012, but failed to beat their provincial brothers Leinster and lost 42-12. Ulster finished bottom of Pool 2 in their first Heineken Cup and were eliminated at that stage. They currently sit 5th in the URC at the time of recording. Toulouse, top 14. Toulouse were founded in 1907 and are the most successful club in France and Europe, having won the French Championship a record 24 times. They reached the first final only 2 years after their founding, but lost to Stade Bordeaux, but then reached the final again in 1912 beating Racing 92 for their first title. They were also the first ever European champions, winning the tournament in 1996, and stamped their mark in a competition that they would go on to win a further 5 times, total record of 6 titles. In 2025, they lost out to the final to Bordeaux Begles, who beat them in the semi-final, but they once again reached the French Championship final and lifted the Bouclier de Brenas for the 24th time. This season, at the time of recording, they are top of the top 14. Leinster, United Rugby Championship. Leinster were founded in 1879 and won the IRFU Interprovincial Championship 22 times, before it was replaced by the Celtic League. They became the 3rd of the 4 Irish provinces to reach the Heineken Cup final in 2009, where they beat Leicester Tigers 19-16 to lift the trophy for the first time. They have gone on to win the Heineken Cup for their 3 times since, having a 100% finals record until losing to Saracens in 2019. Since then, they have been to 3 other finals and lost all of them. The most dominant spell for the club was in the 2010s, where they won 3 of the Heineken Cups and 6 of their 9 URC titles. But in recent years, despite them being consistently in the URC playoffs in the Heineken Cup semis and finals, they didn't win any meaningful silverware between 2021 and 2025, when they finally won the URC for the first time since its most recent format change, which for a team like Leinster was starting to become a problem, with many fans calling for the head coach Leo Cullen to be sacked. In the first Heineken Cup, they finished top of Pool 3 but were knocked out in the semi-final. They have struggled at the start of this season, currently sitting 7th in the URC table at the time of recording. Rugby Milano, disbanded. Amatori Rugby Milano were founded in 1927 as Ambrosiana, a branch of Ambrosiana Football Club, now known as Inter Milan FC. They have won 18 Italian championships, including the first ever in 1929. The most successful era was between that first season and 1946, where they won the championship 14 times. They finished bottom of Pool 3 in the first Heineken Cup, getting knocked out at that stage, but did play in the following 2 tournaments, winning only 1 game when they beat Leinster 33-32 in 1997. But the next year, the club were disbanded for the first time, as they were part of AC Milan Sporting Club under the ownership of Silvio Berlusconi until 1997. At that point, Berlusconi opted to only keep the football club going, and Rugby Milano were disbanded. They were revived again in 2002 and were put into the 4th division of Italian rugby, the Serie C, and managed to get to Serie A, the 2nd division, before being permanently disbanded in 2011. Munster, United Rugby Championship. Munster were founded in 1897, won the IRFU Interprovincial Championship 22 times before it was replaced by the Celtic League. They reached their first Heineken Cup final in 2000, where they lost to Northampton 9-8. This wouldn't be their last opportunity to win the cup though, as they would claim the title in 2006 and 2008, along with winning 3 titles in the Celtic League and Pro 12 between 2003 and 2011. At this time, Munster were a dominant force, but it would take them 12 years to lift any more meaningful silverware when they beat the Stormers to the URC title in 2023. Munster finished 2nd in Pool 4 in the first Heineken Cup, were eliminated at that stage. At the time of recording, they currently sit 2nd in the URC after a flying start to the season where they beat arch rivals Leinster away from home. CA Bordeaux Begles Gironde, top 14. Kind of. The Bordeaux of the Heineken Cup is not technically the same team that won the Champions Cup last season, but they also kind of are. CA Bordeaux Begles Gironde was founded in 1907 in the Begles suburb of Bordeaux. They reached 3 French Championship finals and won 2 of them, as well as a French Cup, but they are now only a youth team, as in 2006 CA Begles and Stade Bordeaux merged to create Union Bordeaux Begles and played in the Pro D2 that season. They were promoted to the top 14 in 2011 and made the top 14 final for the first time in 2024, but were embarrassingly put away by Toulouse 59-3. They played in the Champions Cup for the first time in the 2015-16 season after beating Gloucester in the playoff, where they finished second in their pool but failed to progress to the quarterfinal. In the 21-22 season, they reached the semi-final, being beaten by the eventual champions Toulouse. But this year, in 2025, they got their revenge and beat Toulouse in the semi-final to reach the final of the Champions Cup for the first time and win it too, beating Northampton Saints in the final. They finished second in Pool 2 in the first Heineken Cup and were eliminated at that stage. In the league this season, they currently sit 4th at the time of recording. That was where the first 12 Heineken Cup teams are now, and why not find out where every Heineken Cup finalist is now too by watching this video right here. Thanks for watching.